his face against the window watching the massive orbital station grow larger. It looked like a small moon covered in lights and docking bays. Beside him, Yuna shuffled through her datapad, reading information about their new school for the 10th time. "Can you believe we are actually here?" Dave said from the seat behind them. His voice carried excitement and nervousness in equal measure. "First humans to attend the Galactic Academy of Sciences. Our parents must be so proud." Minji looked up from her engineering textbook and smiled. "They told us we would be making history. I just hope we do not embarrass Earth on our first day." The shuttle docked with a gentle thud. The four friends gathered their bags and joined the crowd of alien students flowing through the corridors. Hyun had seen pictures of different species before, but seeing them in person was different. There were tall beings with crystal-like skin, small creatures with multiple eyes, and furry quadrupeds that walked on their hind legs. As they walked, Hyun noticed something strange. Other students were staring at them. Some pointed and whispered to their friends. A group of large, wolf-like aliens stopped talking when the humans passed by. One of them laughed, though Hyun could not understand why. "Is it just me, or is everyone looking at us weird?" he muttered under his breath. "We are probably the first humans they have seen," Yuna said, trying to sound optimistic. "Give them time to get used to us." They found their dormitory and dropped off their belongings. The rooms were designed to accommodate different species, so everything felt a bit too large. The beds were adjustable, which was helpful. After settling in, they headed to their first class. The classroom was huge, with seats arranged in a circular pattern around a central platform. Students of various species were already seated, chatting in different languages. The humans found 4 seats together near the back. As they sat down, the conversations around them died down. More stares, more whispers. A massive being entered the classroom. It stood at least 8 feet tall, with a body covered in crystalline plates that caught the light. This was Professor Thelvik, according to the nameplate that appeared on the wall screen. The professor moved to the center platform with slow, deliberate steps. "Welcome to Comparative Xenobiology," Thelvik said in a deep, resonating voice. The universal translator in Hyun's ear converted the words to Korean. "In this course, we will study the various species of our galaxy and their evolutionary adaptations." The wall screens lit up, showing images of different aliens and their home planets. Thelvik began the lecture, discussing how species evolved based on their environments and their roles in the food chain. Hyun found it fascinating, taking notes on his pad. Then the professor brought up a new chart. It showed different species organized into categories. At the top were the predators with sharp teeth and claws. In the middle were omnivores. At the bottom were herbivores. Hyun's eyes widened when he saw where humans were placed. They were listed in the herbivore section, right next to peaceful grazing species. "As you can see," Thelvik continued, pointing at the chart, "humans are clearly herbivorous creatures. Note their forward-facing eyes, which provide wide viewing angles for watching for danger while grazing. Their flat teeth are designed for grinding plant matter. Their weak physical build shows they rely on hiding rather than fighting." Yuna's hand shot up. "Excuse me, Professor, but that is not correct. Humans are actually omnivores. We eat both plants and meat." Several students turned to look at Yuna. Some of the predator species made sounds that the translator interpreted as laughter. Thelvik moved closer to their section, looking down at Yuna with what might have been amusement. "My dear child," the professor said, reaching out with one large crystalline hand to pat Yuna's head. She flinched at the touch. "I understand you may not want to accept your place in the natural order, but the evidence is clear. Your species developed technology and intelligence to compensate for your physical weakness. There is no shame in being prey animals who rose above their station through cleverness." The classroom erupted in laughter. Hyun felt his jaw clench. Beside him, Dae's hands curled into fists. Minji stared at her desk, her face red. Yuna sat down slowly, looking embarrassed and angry. "Now then," Thelvik said, returning to the center platform, "let us continue with our discussion of true predator species and their remarkable adaptations." The rest of the class passed in a blur. Hyun barely heard the lecture. He kept thinking about the chart, about being called weak prey animals. When class finally ended, the 4 humans gathered their things in silence. As they left the classroom, they passed a group of the wolf-like aliens. One of them, larger than the others, stepped into their path. Its lips pulled back to show sharp teeth. "Herbivores," it said, and the word sounded like an insult. Try not to get eaten on your way to the cafeteria. Its friends laughed as the group walked away. Dae started forward, but Hyun grabbed his arm. Not worth it, Hyun said quietly. They just insulted us. Dae hissed. That professor insulted us in front of the entire class. I know, Hyun said, his voice calm but his eyes hard. But starting a fight on our first day will not help anything. They found a quiet corner in the station's observation deck. Earth hung in the distance, a blue marble among the stars. The four friends stood there, not speaking for a long moment. This is going to be harder than we thought, Minji finally said. Over the next few days, things got worse. The herbivore students treated them with pity, offering advice on which plants in the cafeteria were safest to eat. The predator students mostly ignored them, though some would make jokes as they passed. The omnivore students seemed confused about where humans fit in. In their second xenobiology class, Telvik continued the lesson on predator-prey relationships. The professor showed videos of hunts from various worlds, fast predators chasing down quick prey, strong predators overpowering defensive prey, pack predators surrounding isolated prey. Notice, Telvik said, how prey species must always be alert. They cannot afford to relax, for predators are always watching. This is why prey species like our human students here tend to be nervous creatures by nature. Hyun said nothing. He just took notes and kept his expression neutral. But inside something was building. Not anger exactly, more like a quiet determination. That evening, the four friends met in Hyun's room. Dee was pacing, too frustrated to sit still. Minji was working on a small device, her way of dealing with stress. Yuna sat cross-legged on Hyun's bed, looking tired. We need to do something, Dae said. We cannot let them keep thinking we are weak little rabbits. What can we do? Yuna asked. They have already made up their minds about us. Hyun looked out the window at the stars. He thought about his childhood on the frontier colony, about the long hunts through the woods with his father, about tracking animals for hours, following signs that others could not see, about the patience required to take down prey that was faster and stronger than any human. We show them, Hyun said quietly. We do not tell them what humans really are. We show them. How? Minji asked, looking up from her device. Hyun turned to face his friends. A small smile played at the corner of his mouth. We wait. Sooner or later, they will give us the chance. And when they do, we make sure they never forget what humans really are. 2 weeks passed at the academy. The humans settled into a routine, though the constant mockery never really stopped. They attended classes, studied in the library, and tried to ignore the whispers that followed them everywhere. But everything changed when Professor Telvik made an announcement. Students, the professor said, standing at the center of the classroom, next week you will participate in a practical examination. This test is a tradition at our academy, designed to demonstrate your species' natural survival abilities. The classroom buzzed with excitement. Telvik brought up an image on the screens. It showed a moon orbiting a nearby gas giant. The surface was covered in forests, plains, and mountains. This is Kepler 442's third moon, Telvik continued. It has breathable atmosphere and diverse ecosystems. You will spend 3 days there with only basic equipment. Predator species will hunt. Prey species will forage and employ defensive strategies. The purpose is to demonstrate your evolutionary adaptations in a practical setting. Hyun sat up straighter in his seat. Yuna glanced at him, and he saw the same thought reflected in her eyes. This was the opportunity he had been waiting for. Around them, the predator students were already boasting. The large wolf-like alien they had encountered on the first day, whose name was Rex, stood up and growled something that made his packmates laugh. The translator caught fragments about teaching prey their place. Telvik looked toward the human students. Our herbivore students, including our humans, will be evaluated on their ability to identify edible plants and avoid predators. Remember, there is no shame in hiding. That is what your species does best. This time, Hyun smiled. It was not a happy smile. After class, the four humans gathered in their usual spot on the observation deck. Dae was grinning widely. Minji had that focused look she got when planning something complex. Yuna was already pulling up information about the moon on her datapad. 3 days in the wilderness, Dae said. This is perfect. We can show them what humans are really capable of. We need to be smart about this, Hyun said. If we do this wrong, it could make things worse. But if we do it right, we will never have to explain ourselves again. Yuna studied the data on her pad. The moon has animal life. small to medium-sized creatures. The reports mention something similar to rabbits, deer-like animals, and some bird species. The predators here will probably go after the bigger prey. What equipment are they giving us? Minji asked. Basic survival gear, Yun said. We get to request specific items from the quartermaster tomorrow. And I have some ideas about what we need. The next day they went to the equipment station. The quartermaster was a small insect-like being with multiple arms. It was currently handing out items to various students. The predator students took weapons like spears and nets. The herbivore students took baskets and plant identification guides. When it was the humans' turn, the quartermaster looked at them with its compound eyes. Ah, the humans. What will you be needing? Gathering baskets? Water purification tablets? We need cordage, Hyun said calmly. Strong fiber rope or materials to make it. Also fire-starting tools, a basic cutting implement, and a container for water. The quartermaster's antennae twitched in confusion. Fire-starting tools? But herbivores typically do not cook their food. And cordage is usually requested by predator species for making traps. We know what we need, Yuna said firmly. The quartermaster hesitated, then began gathering the requested items. As the humans received their equipment, several other students watched with curiosity. Vrex walked by and saw the pile of gear. Planning to cook grass? He said with a snort. His packmates found this hilarious. Hyun just smiled and said nothing. Sometimes silence was more powerful than any response. That evening, the humans worked on their preparations. Hyun tested the cutting tool, making sure it was sharp enough. Minji modified some of their equipment, using her engineering knowledge to improve efficiency. Day practiced with the cordage, remembering knots he had learned in his military training. Yuna compiled information about the moon's ecology. The rabbit-like creatures are common in the forest regions, Yuna explained, showing them images. They are fast but follow predictable patterns. They have burrows near water sources and feed in the early morning and late evening. How do the predators here usually hunt them? Dai asked. Quick ambush attacks, Yuna said. The local predators are built for speed and power. They wait near burrows and strike fast. Hyun nodded slowly. That is not how we will do it. We hunt the human way. The day before departure, Professor Thelvik held a final briefing. The classroom was packed with excited students. The professor explained the rules, the safety protocols, and the grading criteria. Predator species will be evaluated on hunting efficiency and prey selection, Thelvik said. Herbivore species will be graded on foraging success and survival strategies. You will be monitored by drones, but they will not interfere unless there is an emergency. The professor's gaze fell on the human students. I expect our herbivore friends will do their best. Remember, there is no shame in staying safe. Focus on gathering plants and avoiding danger. That is what evolution designed you to do. Several students giggled. Hyun noticed one of the gentler herbivore students, a large furry creature with big eyes, give them a sympathetic look. It probably thought the humans would struggle to survive. That night, Hyun could not sleep. He lay in his bed, thinking about the forests of his home colony. His father had taught him to hunt when he was young, not for sport but for food. The colony needed hunters to supplement the agricultural output. He remembered his first successful hunt. A rabbit-like creature, actually similar to the ones on this moon. His father had taught him patience, how to read tracks in the dirt, how to move silently, how to wait for the perfect moment, how to respect the animal that gave its life. Humans are not the fastest predators, his father had told him. We are not the strongest, but we are the most patient. We can follow prey for days if needed. We can outlast anything on this planet or any other. That is what makes us dangerous. Hyun smiled in the darkness. Soon the galaxy would learn what his father had taught him. The morning of departure arrived. Students gathered in the shuttle bay, organized by species type. The predators stood together, confident and loud. The herbivores huddled in their groups, looking nervous. The humans stood slightly apart, checking their gear one last time. Vrex approached them as they waited. He circled the humans slowly like he was sizing them up. Try not to die out there, little prey animals, he said. It would be embarrassing if we had to rescue you. Day tensed, but Hyun put a hand on his shoulder. We will be fine, Hyun said to Vrex. His voice was calm, almost friendly. You focus on your hunt. We will focus on ours. Vrex's ears flattened slightly. Something in Hyun's tone seemed to confuse him. But before he could respond, the boarding call sounded. The shuttle ride was quick. Through the windows, they could see the moon growing larger. It looked beautiful with blue-green forests and sparkling rivers. The shuttle landed in a clearing, and the students disembarked in groups. Professor Thelvik stood at the shuttle ramp directing students to their starting zones. When the humans approached, the professor pointed to a forested area. "That section has plenty of edible plants," Thelvik said. "Stay within your comfort zone. Do not try to prove anything foolish." "Thank you, Professor," Yuna said politely. The 4 humans walked into the forest. Behind them, they heard Vrex and his pack heading in a different direction, already planning their hunt. Some herbivore students moved in groups, safety in numbers. Once they were deep enough into the trees, away from watching eyes, Hyun stopped. He looked at his 3 friends. They were not scared. They were not nervous. They were ready. "All right," Hyun said quietly. "Let us show them what humans can really do." The forest was quiet except for the sound of wind in the leaves. Hyun led his team deeper into the woods, away from where the other students had scattered. Behind him, Yuna, Dae, and Minji followed in single file, stepping carefully to avoid making noise. "First things first," Hyun said when they reached a small clearing near a stream. "We need shelter and water, then we can focus on hunting." The other students had rushed off to complete their assignments. The predators wanted to hunt immediately. The herbivores wanted to gather food quickly and hide. But the humans took their time. They worked together to build a proper shelter using fallen branches and leaves. Minji showed them how to make it sturdy with clever engineering. The structure would keep them dry and warm. Next, they focused on water. The stream was clean, but they boiled it anyway using the fire-starting tools. While the water cooled, Hyun studied the ground around the stream. He found tracks, small paw prints in the soft mud. "Rabbits," he said, kneeling down to examine the prints more closely. "They come here to drink. Multiple animals, probably a small colony nearby." Yuna pulled up information on her data pad. "The rabbit-like creatures on this moon are most active in the early morning and late evening. They feed on low plants and have burrows within 100 meters of water sources. Then we find the burrows," Hyun said. "But we do not rush. We observe first." They spent the rest of the first day setting up camp properly and scouting the area. Hyun found several burrow entrances hidden in the undergrowth. He watched the patterns of the animals, noting when they emerged and where they went to feed. Dae set up a simple perimeter alarm using cordage and small bells they had brought, so they would know if anything large approached their camp. That night, they sat around a small fire, eating some of the dried rations they had brought. In the distance, they could hear sounds of other students, roars from predators who had made kills, nervous calls from herbivores staying in groups. But the humans were quiet and calm. "Do you think they are watching us with the drones?" Minji asked. "Probably," Yuna said. "I bet Thelvik expects us to be gathering berries and hiding in our shelter." Dae grinned. "Tomorrow is going to be very educational for the professor." Hyun stared into the fire. He thought about the hunt ahead. It was not about proving they were tough or showing off. It was about demonstrating truth. Humans were not herbivores. They were not weak prey animals. They were hunters. Patient, clever, enduring hunters who had climbed to the top of Earth's food chain through sheer determination. The second day began before dawn. Hyun woke the others quietly. They moved through the pre-dawn darkness to the area where he had found the rabbit burrows. They found a good observation spot upwind from the burrows and settled in to wait. This was the part that other predators did not understand. The waiting. A wolf like Vrex would charge in with speed and power. He would make his kill quickly or not at all. But humans did not hunt that way. They waited. They watched. They learned. As the sun rose, the rabbits emerged. They were cautious, sniffing the air, checking for danger. One hopped out, then another, then several more. They moved toward their feeding area, nibbling on the low plants. Hyun watched them for over an hour. He noted which rabbit was the slowest, which one stayed farthest from the burrows, which one seemed less alert. The others might have grown impatient, but Yuna, Dae, and Minji understood. They had all grown up on frontier worlds. They knew how hunting worked. Finally, Hyun identified his target, a medium-sized rabbit that ventured farther from safety than the others. He spent another 30 minutes studying its pattern. It moved in a roughly circular path while feeding, always returning to the same patch of plants. Hyun signaled the others. They moved carefully into position. Minji and Day circled wide to cut off potential escape routes. Yuna stayed with Hyun, ready to help if needed. Every movement was slow and deliberate. They used the terrain for cover. They stayed downwind. The rabbit continued feeding unaware. Hyun had fashioned a throwing stick from a straight branch. It was simple but effective. He had practiced with similar tools since childhood. The key was patience. Wait for the right moment. Do not rush. Do not doubt. The rabbit moved to the predicted spot. It stopped to eat, its back to Hyun. This was the moment. Hyun stood slowly, drew back his arm and threw. The stick flew straight and true. It struck the rabbit at the base of the skull. The animal dropped instantly, dead before it knew what happened. The other rabbits scattered in panic, disappearing into their burrows in seconds. Hyun walked forward and picked up the rabbit. It was a clean kill, quick and merciful. He felt the weight of the animal in his hands and said a quiet thanks, the way his father had taught him. Every life taken deserved respect. The others joined him. Day was grinning widely. Minji looked satisfied. Yuna nodded approvingly. Perfect throw, Day said. Just like back home. They carried the rabbit back to camp. Now came the next part. One that would be just as important as the hunt itself. They needed to process the animal properly. Hyun used the cutting tool to field dress the rabbit. His movements were practiced and efficient. He had done this hundreds of times. Every cut was purposeful. He removed the organs carefully, setting aside the ones that were edible. The hide came off in one piece. Yuna prepared the meat, cutting it into portions. Some would be cooked immediately. Some would be preserved using smoking techniques. Minji examined the bones, identifying which ones could be made into tools. She used the cutting implement to shape a bone into a needle, and another into a small awl. Day worked on the hide, scraping it clean. With proper treatment, it could be used for cordage or a small pouch. Nothing was wasted. Every part of the animal had a purpose. This was human efficiency. This was thousands of years of hunting knowledge passed down through generations. They cooked some of the meat over the fire. The smell was rich and savory. As they ate, they discussed the rest of their time on the moon. They had proven what they needed to prove. Now they could focus on other survival skills. Over the next day and a half, they continued to demonstrate human capabilities. They fished in the stream using improvised hooks made from bone. They foraged for edible plants, showing they understood both hunting and gathering. They improved their shelter, making it more comfortable. They maintained their fire carefully, never letting it go out. On the third morning, they heard other students preparing to return to the shuttle. Vrex and his pack had caught several animals through their aggressive hunting tactics, but they looked exhausted. The herbivore students had gathered food but seemed nervous and tired from constant vigilance. The humans broke down their camp efficiently. They buried the fire pit and scattered the shelter materials, leaving little trace they had been there. But they kept the rabbit. Hyun had preserved it specifically to bring back to the academy. As they walked to the shuttle meeting point, other students stared at them. The humans looked fresh and rested. Their clothes were clean. They moved with easy confidence. They did not look like students who had struggled to survive. They looked like they had been on a camping trip. Vrex approached them, his nose twitching. "You smell like meat," he said suspiciously. "What did you eat?" "Rabbit," Hyun said simply. "You mean you found a dead rabbit?" Vrex asked. Hyun smiled. "No, I hunted it." Vrex's ears flattened. He looked at Hyun more carefully, trying to determine if the human was joking. But Hyun's expression was completely serious. Before Vrex could respond, Professor Thelvik called for everyone to board the shuttles. The students filed in, and soon they were heading back to Axiom Prime. The practical examination was over. Now came the evaluation. Hyun sat by the window, watching the moon grow smaller behind them. In his pack, carefully wrapped and preserved, was the rabbit. Tomorrow, in front of the entire class, he would place it on Thelvik's desk. And then the real lesson would begin. The classroom was packed. Every student from the practical examination had returned for the evaluation session. The air buzzed with excited conversation as students shared stories of their 3 days in the wilderness. Predator species boasted about their kills. Herbivore species compared notes on foraging success. Hyun sat in his usual seat with Yuna, Day, and Minji. His pack rested at his feet. Inside, wrapped carefully, was the rabbit. None of them spoke much. They simply waited. Professor Telvik entered the room and the conversations died down. The massive crystalline professor moved to the center platform with deliberate steps. The screens on the walls lit up, ready to display presentations. "Welcome back, students," Telvik said. "I trust you all learned valuable lessons about your evolutionary heritage during this exercise. Today, you will present your results. We will begin with our predator species, then move to omnivores, and finally our herbivore students." Vrex and his pack went first. They displayed their catches proudly, 3 medium-sized animals, taken through coordinated pack hunting. The professor praised their tactics and efficiency. Other predator students presented similar results. Fast ambush attacks, powerful takedowns, classic predator behavior. The omnivore students showed balanced approaches. Some hunting, some gathering. They had done well, demonstrating flexibility in their survival strategies. Then came the herbivore presentations. Large, gentle creatures displayed the plants they had gathered. They described their defensive formations and how they had avoided predators. Telvik nodded approvingly, commenting on their proper prey behavior. Finally, the professor turned to the human students. "And now, our human friends, I'm curious to see what plants you managed to identify. Please come forward." There was a ripple of laughter through the classroom. Several students whispered to each other. Everyone expected the humans to present baskets of berries and leaves, probably looking embarrassed about their limited success. Hyun stood slowly. He picked up his pack and walked to the center platform. Yuna, Day, and Minji followed him. The 4 humans stood before the professor and the room fell quiet. "Professor," Hyun said calmly, "before we begin our presentation, we brought something to show the class." He reached into his pack. The classroom watched with mild curiosity. Telvik leaned forward slightly, probably expecting some unusual plant specimen. Hyun pulled out the rabbit and placed it on the professor's desk. The silence was instant and complete. Every eye in the room fixed on the preserved animal. It was unmistakably a kill, clean, professional, expertly prepared. The hide had been removed. The meat had been processed. It was the work of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Professor Telvik stared at the rabbit. The professor's crystalline face was hard to read, but the body language showed shock. Telvik reached out slowly as if to confirm the rabbit was real. "This is a kill," the professor said quietly. "A clean kill?" "Yes," Hyun said. "I hunted it on the second day." The classroom erupted. Students turned to each other in confusion and disbelief. Vrex stood up from his seat staring at the humans with wide eyes. The herbivore students looked shocked. Even the other predators seemed unsettled. Telvik raised a hand for silence. "There must be some mistake. Humans are herbivores. You must have found this animal already dead, or perhaps another student gave it to you." "No, Professor." Yuna stepped forward. "Hyun tracked and killed this rabbit using traditional human hunting methods. We can show you the drone footage if you do not believe us." Telvik activated the monitoring system. On the screens, footage appeared from the drones that had watched the students. The professor found the section showing the humans. The class watched in silence as the footage played. They saw the humans building their shelter, finding water, scouting the area. Then came the hunt. The footage showed Hyun watching the rabbits for over an hour. The patient positioning, the careful approach, the precise throw, the clean kill, then the processing, the efficient field dressing, the use of every part of the animal. The footage showed knowledge and skill that took years to develop. When the footage ended, nobody spoke. Telvik stared at the screen, then at the humans, then at the rabbit on the desk. "I do not understand," the professor said slowly. "Herbivores do not hunt. Your classification is clear. Your anatomy indicates plant-eating species." Yuna activated her data pad, connecting it to the classroom screens. "Professor, with respect, your classification of humans is completely wrong." "May I explain?" Telvik nodded slowly, still looking confused and disturbed. Yuna brought up images of human anatomy. "You said our forward-facing eyes indicate prey vigilance. That is incorrect. Forward-facing eyes provide depth perception. Depth perception is essential for tracking prey across long distances and judging distances when throwing projectiles. Prey animals have eyes on the sides of their heads for a wide field of view. Predators have forward-facing eyes." She changed the image to show human teeth. "You said our flat teeth prove we are herbivores. Look closer. Humans have incisors for cutting meat. We have canines for tearing. We have molars for grinding. This is omnivore dentition, capable of processing both meat and plants. The class stared at the images. Several students leaned forward to see better. Frex's mouth hung slightly open. Day stepped forward next. You said humans are physically weak. That is partially true. We are not as strong as many predators. But we evolved for endurance, not strength. Humans can run for hours without stopping. We regulate body temperature through sweating, allowing us to continue physical activity that would cause other species to overheat and collapse. He brought up comparative data. Most predators hunt in short bursts, a chase lasting a few minutes at most. But humans practice persistence hunting. We track prey for hours, sometimes days. The prey runs away. We follow at a steady pace. The prey runs again, we follow. Eventually, the prey becomes exhausted. It can no longer run. Then we make the kill. A small herbivore student in the front row made a sound of distress. The idea of being followed endlessly, unable to escape, was clearly terrifying. Minji displayed the bone tools they had made from the rabbit. Humans are also tool users. We do not have sharp claws or powerful jaws. We do not need them. We make tools. We shape the world to suit our needs. This ability, combined with our endurance and intelligence, makes us extremely effective hunters. Yuna took over again. Humans evolved on Earth as persistence predators and omnivores. We ate plants when available, but we also hunted. Our ancestors would track large animals across vast distances. They would follow herds for days. They would outlast creatures much larger and faster than themselves. She showed images from Earth, ancient cave paintings showing humans hunting, diagrams of hunting techniques passed down through generations, data about human evolutionary history. On Earth, Yuna continued, humans became the apex predator, not because we were the biggest or the strongest or the fastest, but because we were the smartest and the most persistent. We worked in groups. We planned. We tracked. We never gave up. And eventually we won. The classroom remained silent. Professor Thelvik had sat down heavily in a chair. The crystalline professor looked at the rabbit, then at the humans, then at the data on the screens. You are predators, Thelvik said slowly, as if the words were difficult to say. You are not prey. You never were. We prefer the term omnivores, Hyun said gently. We can survive on plants alone if necessary. But yes, we hunt. We have always hunted. That ability is part of what made us human. Vrek stood up slowly. The large predator looked at Hyun with new eyes. You followed that rabbit for over an hour. You just waited and watched. Yes, Hyun said. My kind could never do that, Vrek said quietly. We hunt fast. Sprint, attack, kill or fail. The idea of following prey for hours, for days, never stopping, never giving up. That is terrifying. That is what makes humans dangerous, Day said. We do not look like predators. We do not act like typical predators. But we are patient. And patient predators are the most dangerous kind. Professor Thelvik stood slowly. The professor approached the humans, looking at them as if seeing them for the first time. I owe you an apology. I made assumptions based on surface observations. I insulted your species and your capabilities. That was wrong of me. We understand, Yuna said. You only had limited information. Now you know the truth. Thelvik looked at the rabbit again. The most unnerving predators in the galaxy are the ones that do not look like predators. Humans appear gentle. They seem physically weak. But underneath is a hunter that can outlast anything. That combination is more frightening than any set of claws or teeth. The professor turned to address the class. Let this be a lesson to all of you. Never judge a species by appearance alone. Never assume you understand another species' capabilities without proper research. And never ever underestimate something just because it does not match your expectations. The four humans returned to their seats. Around them, students whispered nervously. Some looked scared. Others looked impressed. But none of them looked at the humans the same way they had before. As the class ended, Hyun picked up the rabbit from the desk. He had made his point. The galaxy now knew what humans really were, and they would never forget. The news spread through Axiom Prime like wildfire. Within hours, every student at the academy knew about the revelation in Professor Thelvik's classroom. The humans were not herbivores. They were not weak prey animals. They were predators who had been hiding in plain sight. The change was immediate. As Hyun walked through the corridors the next day, other students stepped aside. Not with contempt this time, but with caution. Some nodded respectfully. Others avoided eye contact entirely. The mockery had stopped completely. Yuna noticed it too. They are treating us differently now, she said as they walked to the cafeteria. Some of them look scared. That was not what we wanted, Minji said quietly. We just wanted them to understand us. Understanding sometimes brings fear, Day said. Especially when you realize you were wrong about something important. In the cafeteria, the usual buzz of conversation died down when the humans entered. They got their food and found an empty table. As they ate, Hyun noticed groups of students watching them from a distance. The whispers were different now, not mocking but wary. A small figure approached their table. It was Instructor Korra, one of the other professors. Korra belonged to the Kthari species, small amphibious beings known for their intelligence. The instructor's large eyes blinked slowly as they looked at the humans. May I sit? Korra asked. Of course, Instructor, Hyun said, gesturing to an empty seat. Korra climbed onto the chair. I watched the footage from your practical examination. Very impressive, but also troubling. Troubling? Yuna asked. Throughout galactic history, Korra explained, species evolution follows certain patterns. Predators develop speed or strength. Prey develops evasion or defense. But humans combine predator instincts with prey endurance. You have the patience of a hunter and the stamina of something being hunted. That combination does not exist anywhere else in known space. Is that a problem? Dee asked carefully. Not a problem, Korra said. Just unusual. And the unusual often makes people nervous. Give your classmates time. They will adjust. The instructor left and the humans finished their meal in thoughtful silence. That afternoon, Professor Telvik requested a private meeting with the 4 human students. They gathered in the professor's office, a large space with shelves full of biological specimens and research materials. Telvik looked different somehow. Less arrogant. More thoughtful. The professor gestured for them to sit. I wanted to speak with you privately, Telvik began. Yesterday's revelation has forced me to reconsider many things. Not just about humans, but about my own approach to xenobiology. We did not mean to cause trouble, Professor, Yuna said. You did not cause trouble. You corrected my ignorance. That is different. Telvik picked up a data pad. I have spent the past day reviewing all available information on human evolution. The data was there all along. I simply did not look carefully enough. I made assumptions based on superficial similarities to prey species. The professor looked at each of them in turn. The concept of persistence hunting is foreign to most galactic species. Predators here evolved to chase prey in short bursts. The idea of following something for hours or days until it collapses from exhaustion is something out of nightmares for many species. We do not hunt like that anymore, Hyun said quietly. Humans farm. We build cities. Most of us never hunt at all. But the capability remains, Telvik said. The instinct. The knowledge. Your demonstration proved that. You grew up on frontier worlds where those skills are still used. But even humans who have lived in cities for generations carry that heritage in their DNA. Is that why some students seem afraid of us now? Minji asked. Yes, Telvik admitted. They believed they understood what humans were. Finding out they were completely wrong is frightening, especially for prey species. The idea that a species they thought was harmless is actually a patient, enduring predator changes everything. Day frowned. We are not going to hurt anyone. Humans have moved beyond pure survival. We cooperate, we trade, we build civilizations. I know, Telvik said, and that is perhaps most remarkable of all. A species with such hunting capabilities chose to build peaceful societies. Most predators in the galaxy maintain their aggressive nature, even after achieving civilization. But humans have learned to direct those instincts elsewhere, into sports, into challenges, into exploration. The professor stood and walked to the window, looking out at the station. I have sent a report to the Galactic Xenobiological Society. Human classification needs to be updated throughout all databases. This will have implications for Earth's diplomatic status and trade relationships. Will it cause problems for Earth? Yuna asked, concern in her voice. No, Telvik said. If anything, it will help. Other species will take humans more seriously. There will be more respect in negotiations, and perhaps more caution, which is not necessarily a bad thing. As they left the professor's office, they found Vrex waiting in the corridor. The large predator stood when he saw them. Can we talk? Vrex asked. They walked together to a quiet observation area. Vrex seemed uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot. I wanted to apologize, Vrex finally said. I was cruel to you when you first arrived. I called you weak. I mocked you. That was wrong. You did not know, Hyun said. That is no excuse, Vrex replied. I should not have judged you based on appearance. My people hunt in packs. We rely on speed and coordination. We hunt in bursts of intense activity, then rest. The idea of chasing prey for hours without stopping. Never giving up, just following and following until the prey can no longer run. That is terrifying to me. We do not hunt people, Day said firmly. That part of our evolution is about survival, not violence. I know, Vrex said. But instinct is hard to ignore. My species recognizes other predators instantly. We know what to respect and what to fight. But you humans did not register as threats to our instincts. That made you more dangerous, not less. Yuna smiled slightly. So you were fooled by the same thing that fooled our prey back on Earth. We do not look dangerous. That is the point, Vrex laughed, a rough barking sound. I suppose that is true. Can we start over? As equals this time? We would like that, Hyun said, extending his hand. After a moment of hesitation, Vrex reached out and they shook hands. It was an Earth gesture, but the meaning translated well enough. Over the following weeks, life at the Academy found a new balance. The humans were no longer dismissed as weak herbivores. Some students avoided them out of lingering nervousness. Others, particularly the predator species, developed a grudging respect. A few, like Vrex and his pack, became genuine friends. The herbivore students took longest to adjust. The idea that something they thought was safe was actually a predator was deeply unsettling to them. But even they began to relax when they saw that humans were not aggressive, not violent, not cruel, just capable. Professor Thelvik's teaching changed too. The professor now used humans as a prime example when discussing evolutionary adaptations and survival strategies. Entire lectures were devoted to persistence hunting and human endurance capabilities. One day, several months after the revelation, Hyun sat in xenobiology class listening to Thelvik explain human evolution to a new group of students who had just arrived at the academy. The most dangerous predators, Thelvik was saying, are not always the ones with the biggest teeth or the sharpest claws. Sometimes the most dangerous predators are the ones with patience, endurance, and intelligence. Humans demonstrate that perfectly. The new students looked at Hyun and his friends with wide eyes. There was caution there, but also curiosity. These students had been warned before arriving. They knew what humans were from the start. After class, one of the new students approached Hyun nervously. It was a small bird-like creature with bright feathers. Is it true you can run for hours without stopping? The student asked. Yes, Hyun said simply. That is amazing, the student said, and the fear in its voice was mixed with genuine admiration and frightening, but also amazing. Hyun smiled. We are not so scary once you get to know us. Come on, we are heading to the cafeteria. You should join us. The bird-like student hesitated, then nodded and followed. It was a small step, but it was a start. That evening, the four human friends gathered on their usual spot on the observation deck. Earth hung in the distance, that small blue marble that had produced something unique in the galaxy. A species that combined predator and prey traits, hunters who learned to be peaceful, killers who chose to be kind. Do you think things would have been easier if they had known the truth from the beginning? Minji asked. Maybe, Yuna said, but maybe not. They needed to underestimate us first. They needed to see the contrast between what they thought we were and what we actually are. We proved something important, Day added, not just about humans, but about making assumptions. Thelvik will never classify a species based on surface appearance again. That lesson will reach other professors, other scientists, other species. Hyun looked at his friends, then back at Earth. We came here to learn, but we also taught something valuable. That is a fair exchange. The stars glittered around them. Thousands of worlds with thousands of species. The galaxy was vast and diverse, and now it understood a little more about humanity. Not just that humans could hunt, but that they chose when to hunt and when to show mercy.